welcome to People Are Everything, the show that's a bit like Desert Island Discs, but rather than bring music, I ask my guests to bring the 5 people that have shaped the person they are today. And today we are joined by Lindsey Frances. Lindsey, first and foremost, is a psychotherapist. She specializes in supporting very high-functioning people who have a particular need, if you like, for being optimal. And she combines psychotherapy with sophrology, something I didn't know much about till today, and biometrics with, those gadgets a bit like the Aura Ring or the like. And it's a fascinating conversation. The people she's chosen is very heartwarming, and we cover a lot of ground in this conversation. So please do sit back and enjoy Lindsey Frances. Hello, Lindsey. Welcome to People Are Everything. How are you, first of all?
I'm amazing, Julia. Thank you so much.
You are amazing.
Indeed.
And we're going to get into how amazing very soon. I see we share the same taste in microphone prominence. So I've tried a different angle with mine today. But there's something about them, isn't there? There's like, I feel very powerful when I'm behind a microphone. I feel like, well, like you said earlier, and with the headphones, I feel in charge.
It's all about
It's all about props. I just can't seem to wean myself off the headphones. I'm going to give it a go. But I know I'm speaking to a professional podcaster, so I'm upping my game today. This is me hoping for a good score at the end on my performance. But welcome. How did we meet? I was trying to think about that.
Lucy Chamberlain.
That's it.
She is our mutual connection. And I must just say, for people that don't know Lucy, her podcast that she did with me was the best podcast because
I don't doubt it.
Is so on point, short, to the point, knows exactly what she's talking about. I was blown away. And then I found you and I thought, well, let's see what happens there.
I love Lucy. I had my podcast with her. I don't know, maybe it's the format that brought out not the precise nature of some of her answers. I think that's probably the nature of this format, and we'll see how this goes with you, Lindsey. But I prefer to think of us as having a long-form conversation, but without wine. And I might even introduce wine at some point, because I think people listening is just, I don't know, isn't this I don't know. I really like listening to people chatting. Like, I like long-form podcasts. I like the conversational nature of it, and probably the fact that we are going to get a bit relaxed and say things that, we haven't really thought about until now. Every podcast I've done so far has revealed something to me, and I've gone, there's one lady, Lucy H. Pierce. Everything she said, I was like, it's the first time I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
And I was like completely blown away by that. And Lucy Chamberlain, absolute powerhouse in what she does, and so insightful. And I was really impressed to how sort of vulnerable she was on my podcast, and she shared a lot of things that were very personal and very, very, I suppose, very raw for her. So yes, okay, all makes sense now, Lindsey. This is good news. What is also good news is that I am with a pro. So I know you've got an amazing podcast, and it's about, I think, no, hang on, got to get this right. Forget it.
Oh.
I need to do more research.
No, you don't. It's a tongue twister, and it's meant to be.
Rich, simple human.
Exploring the rich simplicity of being yourself, which of course is a juxtaposition in itself. But that's for another time.
Oh no, I want to hear about it.
Oh, it's been very exciting. And of course, like you say, why are we not hanging out, having more conversations with each other? Because we're too busy on the internet and doing other rubbish. That chit-chatting that we used to do when we were younger. I went away with a friend recently, and we said, should we go out for dinner? We said, no, let's pretend we're students and lay on the sofa and eat crisps. We had the most fun ever. I was literally like, we're not getting up. Let's just lay here all evening. We did.
Well, I love that.
Her now than ever before, but the temptation to go out and have dinner and do something purposeful, supposedly. We've lost the art of living in rich simplicity, Julia, and it's my main mission now is to say to people, can we stop, leave our phones behind, and hang out with each other again, like we're doing now?
Well, do you know what? I like crisps and I like conversation, so count me in next time.
Good.
But as an extra layer of what's a conversation killer these days, I don't know if you feel the same way, and I don't know if it's because it's like when you get older, you go, "Oh, this music's too loud." But the music's too loud, Lindsay. I'm in a restaurant or a bar, and no one does soft furnishings anymore, so it's all audio ping, ping, pinging all over the walls, and it gets loud and it gets clattery, and I have to shout to the person next to me, and then I just give up. And I don't want to have long form conversations. I want to get the bill and I want to get out of there because I can't hear myself and I can't hear the person I'm with. And why do we do that to ourselves? How is having a meal, shouting at each other, enjoyable? So let's sort that out as well, Lindsay, whilst we solve every other problem of the
It's
world.
not enjoyable, and I must just say, because I'm a massive fan of biometric data tracking, when
I know this.
you're in a noisy place with loads of people, your nervous system hates it and it messes up your data. So if anybody's wondering why they're looking at these little gadgets they're wearing, if you go out and it's that noisy all the time, your whole body's like, "What? It's just too much." Even though you've become accustomed to it. It doesn't serve us, Julia, at
No, no, and I love that. I have done some research, everybody, just a bit. I just couldn't remember the name of it. Is a tongue twister. Sort it out, Lindsay. I can't cope. Um, what my research of you is that, you blend psychotherapy with biometrics, sophrology techniques, which I hope you're going to explain to everybody listening what that means, and your kind of whole person support for sort of high performing people, really, isn't it? That's kind of your category. Founders, investors, senior leadership people. And your podcast, by the way, has all like really clever people on it,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite things to listen to as well. I
Thank
love
you.
learning through podcasts. So can you, before we get into anything else, can you do a summary of who you are, what you're about, and, actually also make sure I have done my research properly and got that right?
Of course, and you have done your research. Of course, what I'm going to do is talk about a method called sophrology that
Yeah.
nobody knows anything about. So every marketer or sales person I talk to rolls their eyes and like, "You can't do this." I'm like, "Well, I am doing it. Just watch me." But if I give you a bit of a flavour of what I do and how I do it, I do something called emotional wealth advisory services. I talk to people about becoming emotionally wealthy, becoming a rich, simple human. What on earth does that mean? Ultimately, what it means is I'm a data-driven behavior change expert. I'm a psychologist and a sophrologist by trade. That's what it says on my insurance documentation, depending on which bit of Europe you're in, of course. And my job is to help people step into a really high level of satisfaction physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. How do we do that? We don't do it in the traditional coaching methods of planning, focusing, forward moving. We do it by stepping back, being still, and using this technique called sophrology, which is a beautiful blended method which started in the 1960s, which involves gentle body movement, visualization, meditation, and breathwork, layered in with all of the tips and tricks I've been learning on my own very interesting journey. We have incredible results, and I use normally Whoop or Aura to track people's biometric health data. So if you're a happy, healthy, rich, simple human, your heart rate variability should be sky high because your nervous system is going from fight or flight when it needs to rest and digest when it needs to. And you've got this huge variance happening, like a horse. They startle, then they go back to eating grass. They startle, then they go back. We're designed to work like that. We're prey animals. But what's happened is we're just stuck in fight or flight. Our bodies don't work. Our
Hmm.
body's not repairing itself. Our digestion's not working properly. Our emotions are all over the place. Our brainwaves are firing like crazy. Our hearts are racing. This is not a fun place to live. So that's an essence of what I do, Julia. Not easy to explain. It's an emerging market. And in 10 years' time, you'll see emotional wealth advisory services absolutely everywhere.
Well, I just want to sign up already. I mean, why wouldn't you? If it so makes so much sense. I mean, I'm pretty in tune with this body of mine. I get teased actually quite a lot, which is, I kind of regard my body as this, like, I don't know. I suppose I've only got the one, and I kind of think of it as like, if I've only got the one, is it? Then I'm really going to look after it, like a really prized car or
Mm.
something like that. Something I want to go out and polish and make sure it's absolutely optimum. And so when it's slightly below par, even slightly, I've got zero tolerance of it.
Mm.
Zero. You ask my partner, I'm like, right, I'm going to the doctors. And she's like, why? And I said, well, I'm not feeling optimal. And she said, well, people mostly go to the doctor so they're not feeling well, but you're just not feeling optimal. Or I'll go and see a physiotherapist because I've got some sort of imbalance, or I'm just not feeling the way I want to feel. And what I want to feel is optimal all the time.
Of course.
And I love the racehorse thing, or the horse thing. People have reminded me in the past that I think they think I'm highly strung. I don't think it's highly strung, Lindsay. I think what it is that I'm very sensitive to things. Like if I take anything, even the tiniest measure of anything, could be barely a trace, like a homeopathic, remnant. Oh, I get everything, every side effect. I react. My body reacts. But I have a very low resting heart rate, so it makes me
Oh, super.
healthy, I think. I'm touching wood here. Can you hear it? I'm banging the wood. Um, Listen, I love what you do. I think it's that perfect blend. And I think if you're a high functioning person, I don't put myself in that category, but I know high functioning people. That is that is the story. They need everything firing absolutely 100% to take on the things that they're taking on, to achieve the things that people expect of them. So I absolutely agree. You and your like are going to be all over all of us, and particularly with data being so a big feature now of how we monitor our well-being. So good. All
Mm.
right. Well, I'm probably going to ask you more questions about that as we go, because I'm thinking of buying an Aura ring. So that's another little side note. Let's talk about that offline.
Lo-
Um, so you know the format. It's very structured, although we probably will meander. Um, and I suppose where I always want to start with my guests is, how they found choosing their five. Because, well, firstly, I want tips on what I'm going to do when somebody finally asks me who my five are. But also, I find it extremely revealing of the person, how they've kind of how they've gone about the process. Let's put it that way.
Well, it was not an easy process, Julia. So when I enthusiastically agreed to be on the show, I thought this would I actually had to do quite a lot of mental processing to get to those five.
Mm.
I also thought this was quite funny, and what you've just said about what would I say. I spend a lot of time in my practice with clients doing work on inner child. We do a lot on role models, and we do a lot of inherited characteristic work to prepare for the legacy that people want to leave behind. So I too needle people on these questions. Who are your idols? Who are your role models? Who's influenced you? What was positive? What was negative? What inherited characteristics are you carrying forwards? Which ones are you breaking chains on? So I thought I was terribly clever. So when I sat down to do this piece of work on myself, I thought, oh, I don't actually know what to say. So I really had to pull my finger out, I'll be honest with you. And I've also said to you, I'm in the middle of reading your book. So that was very helpful. Thank you very much. Because I sort of thought that helps unpick. I was reading your story and unpicking my own at the same time. And although you are searingly honest in your presentation of your own experience, it means that we're reflecting, aren't we, on well, which bits of mine were good and which bits were perhaps less helpful, and no judgment at all. So I've come to the conclusion that this is a really difficult piece of work to do. And sophrology is also about very much staying in the present moment. So I've trained myself to look forwards. So when I went to look backwards, I found it quite difficult. Who's influenced?
Mm.
And I also felt a little bit like, I'm not sure I want to look backwards. I'm not sure I like reflecting. I know we do need to do some reflection. But I did wonder whether I wanted to go over old ground. And I have a lot of men in my practice because they like the fact that it's forward facing. And we always say, how are you feeling now and how do you want to feel? Not,
Mhm.
we start from that very positive place. And of course, it unfolds. There's 12 levels to sophrology. Um, but I spent a lot of time thinking, what did I inherit in terms of characteristics? So therefore, who influenced me? So I went over the back catalogue of family that I knew, and I sort of went through, I come from quite a small family. I went through who would I really want to talk about in terms of family. And then I wanted to talk about who would influence me professionally and perhaps who might be influencing me today. So the person I'm going to start talking about first of all is my mum. So
Oh,
if you're
good.
for me to do that, I will carry on why I chose her. anybody, we all have a mother, of course, and some of us have present mothers and some of us don't. Some of us have encouraging mothers and some of us don't. And then some of us become mothers, and again, some don't. But I think we're always mothering somewhere along the line. And I think it's quite interesting to see how we serve people in that sort of maternal and feminine capacity. My mum is an incredibly organized person, and she comes from a long line of women who were absolute survivors. I was very close to my grandmother on my maternal side, and I also knew my great grandmother, and they were tough cookies. Um, I've learnt a lot.
Mhm.
I've watched resilience. I've watched determination. I've watched an ability to batten down and battle on. And I've learnt a lot from that, and I appreciate that maternal line. I've also been fortunate to have done quite a lot of family constellation work with other therapists. So I see how that's been handed down to me. And I also see the flip side of being a woman who's capable and perhaps sometimes unable to let people in. And I always laugh when I come and talk about control and boundaries with clients. And we talk about the sort of, I can do it, I can manage, I'm perfectly capable, thank you. Well, of course we are as women, and it's great. It's a great characteristic. But there has to be a soft side where we say, please, can you help me? Or
Mm.
can I please receive your help, your love, and your affection? And I have lots of conversations with men and women about their own relationships and their own physical desires. And are we actually able to let people into that inner space? Or is it a transactional experience? Or is it a sort of uncomfortable is it, this should be a joyful interaction. Anybody that's read Michael Singer's beautiful, beautiful book, now I've just said that, the name has gone out of my head. Um, Open-hearted. Anyway, it's an amazing book. It's about that being open-hearted. So women,
Mm.
mother has taught me to be very resilient, very organized. She does think that my house is a bit of a tip because she's far more particular and house proud than I am. But she's somebody where there's always enough food, there's always clean linen. And it was really in contrast to some other people's experiences, of course. It was a lovely, clean, welcoming home where we were provided for and cared for and loved. And she learnt that from her maternal side. And yeah, I've learnt a lot from her, and I appreciate um, everything that she's done. And of course, nobody's perfect, but she's been a huge influence on my life and continues. I'm very lucky. I still have both my parents. They're both still married. They model marriage in a way that makes me laugh. Now I've also been married over 20 years. So yes, it's an interesting game to watch.
Oh, marvelous. I've got proper mum envy now. I mean,
Oh,
that's extraordinary. I think if you have that as a grounding and a modeling, that's such a wonderful starting point for life, really. And I'm sure there are things that you do that are uniquely you, and you're just the next vanguard of this family, and you're taking forward those generations of women with you. But there's going to be, uniquely Lindsay things there too. But to be able to kind of recognize and see already how clearly she's influenced you, I think that's really, really wonderful, actually. And I can't relate to any of it, Lindsay, as you know, because you've started to read my book, and I'm thinking, wow, what must that be like? Um, and I mean, how is your relationship day to day? And you know, what 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 does she occupy um, now that you're in different stages of life? Is it do you still learn from her, lean on her? Do you still ask her advice? Is it just will you just go around when you're feeling you need a little boost? What does it look like now? I'm just curious.
that's a really great question, Julia, because I've done an enormous amount of work on myself. So
Hmm.
it isn't helpful to anybody to sit here and say, and the bad bits were la la la, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
There are pieces of the relationship that I had with my mother I won't take forwards with my own
Mm.
children, which is a beautiful, beautiful recognition of being uniquely you.
Yeah.
What does it look like day to day? I think there's a moment, and I think it happens at about 45, where you suddenly realize that your parents aren't invincible and that you have
Mm.
an adult. And there's a big shift from this child adult or child parent to adult. You're still the child and they're still the parent. But I'm noticing this a lot with the work that I do, where there is a moment where you realize you are going to be the one who's responsible. And
Mm.
there's a grieving, I think, a little bit, or maybe it's a maturity moment where people realize Oh, I am actually on my own. If they've had their parents, of course. If they
Yeah.
haven't, I think it's a very different experience. But I'm beginning to notice, especially with
Mm.
people who've got teenage children and aging parents, that they suddenly realize that the buck actually stops with them.
Hmm.
And it's a real moment where they think either this is way too much responsibility, or I'm completely overwhelmed and I can't cope, or I'm really going to pull my socks up and I'm going to go out and get the professional support I need to be able to unpick this. So, on a day to day basis, we are in a transition now where, of course, I'm older and they're older. There's a wisdom to the relationship. And there's also a grace where I am able to say to them now, because of the journey I've been on myself, thank you so much for what you've done. Thanks
Hmm.
for giving me the things you've given me, doing the things you've done for me, and continuing to do what you do, even though, Julia, they don't approve of all my choices.
Well,
And
that's their job.
that is their job, but it's to me, of course, I've got 2 children, to know that it's okay not to approve of their choices. And when they say,
Hmm.
"What do you think?" I say, "Well, it wouldn't be for me, but it could
Yeah.
be absolutely great for you." It's
Yeah.
a real sign of emotional maturity. And I know I've heard you in your podcast talk before about being able to do that. It's a real
Hmm.
skill because what's right for you, Julia, isn't right for me. What's right for me isn't right for you. But you've got to go inside to find that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Isn't it weird that we just when we're peaking ourselves in terms of performance, wisdom, experience, and energetically, that we're caught between those two responsibilities? Midlife, maybe that's why people have midlife crises. It's because you just start learning who you are. You just start revving up, getting ready to be your absolute fullest best self. And, the reality of being, you know, caregiver still to an adult children, they're if anything more complex than children, because they're still your child even if they're in their 20s, but you're having to kind of um, help them in their own independence and help them pull away from you because they have to pull away from you. And it sounds really weird, and I think I may have mentioned this before, maybe not. But my daughter, very young, I think she was only about 9 or something. She just sat down whimsically one day. I think she was sitting on the stairs and went, "Huh, isn't it a shame, Mummy? I'm only going to know you half my life." And I'm like, "Oh, you've worked that out already?" She goes, "Oh yeah, yeah. I realise the second half I'm going to be by myself, but it's okay." And then she said, in fact, she might have even been younger because she said something like, "But I think what's going to happen is you're going to be in a field as a pony, and I join you later when I'm ready to be a pony. And in the meantime, I'm going to be a foal." And I was like, I asked her, "Are you talking about heaven?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's what heaven is. You're in a field as a pony." I'm like, where did this come from? Where how did you know to be this profound? But it's true in it. And I think do you know, people in their 40s who lose a parent, it's almost like it comes as a massive surprise that they've got their second half to go if they're lucky enough to have the same time after their 40s as they've had before, that's going to have to be on their own and with responsibility for others that they can't go to their parent to and say, "Can you help me with this? I need you." And I think that's the tectonic plate shift that people go through when they lose a parent. And until you lose one, and Lindsay, I know you can probably cognitively talk about it and you have all the technical expertise. But I don't think anyone can predict how they're actually going to feel. Doesn't matter how old they are when their own parent leaves this planet. And that disappearance and goneness is so palpable. So there's no preparation really, but there kind of is as well. That kind of knowing that it's coming, do a little bit of, I don't know, prepping somehow, but knowing that you don't know how you're going to be. But no, I love that. I love the fact she's made top spot. She's probably going to listen now and go, "Thank you for that, Lindsay." Would she be pleased?
I think she'll be extremely pleased. And she takes a keen interest, both my parents do, in the work I do, because I lead with consciousness. What do you do, Lindsay? Consciousness. Like, what on earth is that?
Why don't you have a real job?
Yeah. She's like, what? How does that work? What is it, a product? Can you buy it on Amazon? No, you have to
Yeah.
stop and go inside. Oh, yeah, we're too busy to do that. But no, to be fair to them, they do understand it. And I think what you've just said about the wisdom of children. I spend a lot of time talking to people about fear of death. I spend a lot of time talking to people about grief. Of course I do, because I'm looking at their data and their behavior.
Mm,
And it's said, isn't it, that you will choke on undigested grief if you
mm, mm.
sit. And that's not a fun job, but it can be done. But it takes a level of awareness and consciousness and willing, not
Yeah.
to push it down and to then have it just build up, build up, build up.
Mm,
And like you say about children, when we are in our childlike state of play, in flow, we're with our friends, we're doing something we love, we of course activate that intuition that children have. And we
mm.
have those visuals that come up. Oh, I am in a field doing what? Oh, this is great. I don't have a fear of death because I think I've had a glimpse of the other side. The veil has been slightly lifted.
Yeah.
When you become an advanced or a consistent, advanced is a funny word, meditator or visualizer, there is a real sense of a higher power, of something beyond ourselves that's
Mm.
incredibly exciting. And when you have a glimpse of that, whether you've got there through your own practice or whether you've been doing ayahuasca or MDMA or whatever else some people are using, um, it's incredibly reassuring and very exciting. This is not the end. There's so much more. I thought I was a giant walking head. I didn't even realize I had a body. Now I know
Yeah.
I've got a head and a body and an emotional body and a spiritual body. I'm like, I'm quids in. I've got like 4 bodies to do stuff with, and that's a super exciting place to be. But yes, children, my daughter said to me probably a few years ago, so she was maybe 13 or 14, and I was worrying about her. And this is the TikTok generation, isn't it? She said, Mummy, clearly you're the one with the attachment disorder and not me. And there you
Yeah.
have
Mic drop moment, and off she went.
of course.
I love it.
I shut up.
No, they're the wisdom of children. You're absolutely right, and I think it's because I think that's what you're saying, is that they're unfettered by all the fear and, anxieties and awfulness that as we unfortunately grow in this world. Um, and I am slightly worried that that is accelerating so quickly for children. I mean, when I was a kid, you didn't even know what was happening in the next town because you didn't read a paper, and if you didn't hear about it from your actual friends, it didn't exist. Now they open their laptops and they've got the whole world rushing in to their brains. And that it feels to me like no one's allowed to be a child at all for very long, you know, to have that naive, open-hearted, wondrous feeling about this incredible life, which makes me sad. All right. Well, I love that. I love that she's number one, and that you've had this incredible relationship and continue to. So, well done. Okay, who is number two then, Lindsay?
Well, this was really difficult because I'm going to talk about Dr. Caicedo, who's the founder of Sophrology. And I'm going to talk about him because I have, in recent years, realized that one of my favorite tricks, things to do, is imagine I'm somebody else. So I often spend a lot of time imagining that I'm Dr. Caicedo in his hospital ward in Madrid in the 1950s, because he's the founder of Sophrology and he was a neuropsychiatrist administering electric shock therapy to patients in a mental institution in Madrid. And he was so traumatized by what he saw that he realized there must be a better way of dealing with this and went all over the world in his lifetime to create the method that we now know as sophrology. And sophrology is the study of consciousness in harmony. It consists of 12 levels of exploration of mind, body, and spirit. And it's quite fun. It's changed my life and it's changed every client that I've worked with. And there are thousands of sophrologists in Europe. They work in schools, hospitals. A lot of cancer treatment patients have sophrologists recommended to them to help them through. They're used in pain clinics. And he was such an incredibly insightful man, although not a huge amount is written about him, that he felt this burning calling to do something different. And can you imagine how brutal that must have been, that he was there doing that? And in fact, we still give patients electroshock.
Mm.
And it is proven to be effective. If you go on PubMed, you'll read thousands of articles that say this is really good for things like schizophrenia and very, very chronic mental illness. But then, of course, what it does say is it also then brings on brain damage and other
Mm.
physical disabilities. So what's worse? And of course, we come from a world of medication at the moment, and we're all very keen to find the latest cure. I think statins and Ozempic are on my top hit list of things I'd like to suddenly eradicate. And because I see their purpose, and I see why that's so beneficial. But then we get to the point where we just think, well, let's take a pill, shall we? And
Hmm.
like you said,
Hmm.
you go to the physiotherapist, or I've got an incredible chiropractor who keeps saying to me, "You're a bit fussy about how your body is, aren't you?" Yeah, I am actually. There's a nick my shoulder, which I'm trying to get rid of. I've been doing all the things. I've been meditating on it. I've been doing cellular activation. I've been stretching. There's
Yeah.
something, and he can get in there and go, "Oh, there, I found it," because he's
Yeah.
like a mechanic for the car.
Yeah.
Um, when we have a preventative view, like Caicedo did of mental health, and we actually start using preventative techniques, we connect the mind to the body together,
Hmm.
work in synergy. We then use obviously the spiritual body and the emotional body at the same time. We live a full and healthy life. And I believe that this mental health crisis is being caused by the fact that we're just hanging out in our heads. And our heads is an operating system that it downloads faulty wiring. You know, I had a dog that bit me when I was 7. I'm now afraid of dogs. That's not a true statement. I mean, it is, you are afraid of dogs. But your brain has decided that laid down that pathway. And every time you see a dog, you just run it subconsciously. Freud's
Hmm.
iceberg,
Hmm.
1905, subconscious, conscious. 90% of what goes on in our life is happening subconsciously. We don't even know about it. Dangerous, dangerous place to be operating from. So I think my second person is certainly Caicedo for what he tried to do. The fact that it's now sitting in Europe as a method, and I really hope that we'll see that expanding now, because we do have a calling on us to find a solution to the mental health challenges and also to burnout, Julia. I'm sure you know people or yourself have maybe experienced this thing that we're now calling burnout, this state of being unable to operate. What's that being caused by? Just the fact that we're hanging out in our heads and we're burnt out because our passion's gone out, our fire has gone out. And we only
Hmm.
know about passions because we feel it in our body. You don't feel love in your head. You don't feel desire in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. I no, there's so much to unpick there because, well, first of all, I didn't know about sophrology. I suppose it's a kind of an evolved version of mind, body, spirit, isn't it? So which you do hear quite often. But I think it takes it to a whole different level of sort of human optimization. Um, and just another little kind of flashback for me, which is, back to mums. My mum had so many electric shocks. I mean, I don't know. I don't know eventually whether it was that or the Valium, but something. She didn't make it to 45 through reactions to those two things. So who knows what the combination of those two things were really doing? A young body at 45, young by anybody's measure, should be able to sustain beyond that. So I've had sort of close-ish experience with that. And burnout, you s I think these things are quite sort of thrown around a little bit by mainstream. "Oh, I've got burnout." I've actually been near someone who's had real burnout, and, it was a guy that, he had completely shut down. He was kind of mute.
Mm.
Like, he was so I think they called it mental collapse,
Mm.
and, his business had burnt him out to such a point, it had I mean, I'm gonna say burned his brain
Yeah.
and his system, his nervous system so badly that he couldn't communicate, and it was really awful to see. And, I'm sure that, he's still sought the help he needs, but it's like it's very extreme when it's really left unchecked and can be left to run. Um, and, I suppose more of what you were saying, I kind of it makes so much sense. If you live in your head and you're not paying attention to your body and you tell yourself all these stories, you're basically, I don't know, it's self-sabotaging really, isn't it? You're kind of telling yourself that, you can't do this or you can't do that or I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that. So it makes perfect sense that you have to work on all aspects of yourself if you're going to be optimal. So yes, good for him. Is he, so he kind of came out in the 1950s. I mean, is he published? Tell us more about how he presents into the world now. Is it a movement? Is it a methodology? Tell us a bit more about him.
Yes, the Caesagian Institute of Sophrology in Spain is run by his daughter, and it's a very
Mm.
active body. And there are many, many research papers around the effectiveness of this method.
Mm.
Um, and it's proven to be an incredible way of improving well-being physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it's used in many different contexts. And pain, for example, is a very interesting area that they're pushing into. Because when we actually pay attention to the body accelerates its own healing. And of course,
Mm.
some of the work by Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton. Again, they are scientists. In fact, Dr. Lisa Miller as well, talking about non-religious spirituality and the neuroprotective benefits. These are really, really key pieces of research, but it's being hidden, I think, a little bit underneath this medical model of treating issues with a pill. Uh,
Mm.
so I feel deeply frustrated, which is great because frustration for me is fuel. Anger is fuel. For me, I feel these emotions and I think this is telling me I need to act. What do I need to do? And anger is not the one to act on, by the way. The anger that makes you want to punch somebody in the head or send them a nasty text message is not the cue. The cue is to stop and go, what's under the anger?
Yeah, yeah. What's triggering this?
Am I frightened, afraid, frustrated, annoyed? I am
Yeah,
really annoyed that we've got to this point, and I fell foul of this myself, Julia. I thought I was a giant walking head, and the only way to turn my head off was to drink wine, and
yeah, yeah,
that went on for a long time. What a rubbish way of living,
yeah.
and
But
no one good. There's
let's
another one.
go. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and let's go back to the sort of statins and Ozempic kind of the pill mentality. I think what you're saying there is, there's so I suppose both of those are what you take when you've got to a place where you've actually potentially damaging your body through the lifestyle and emotional and physical problems that you've been manifesting for some time. So, in the case of statins, it's usually to get your cholesterol down, possibly through lifestyle, possibly through all kinds of other, triggers. And you take the magic pill, and suddenly everything's solved. But we all know it really isn't. It's actually just masking, and many many people now are very dependent on that pill. Ozempic, I'm actually quite late to the game on this.
Mm.
I haven't been really paying attention about it, until I realized that it's kind of blown up as everywhere, isn't it? I mean, there are people who are not even requiring it, or they're just taking it for a beach body quick fix because they're going on holiday. And I think when it starts to become a lifestyle, um, choice where you're just taking it for, I don't know, not necessarily critical medical reasons, that's a worry. It says I can just obliterate my body and do whatever I want, and I'll just take the pill and I'll be fine. But it's like looking after going back to this wonderful car of ours. I don't know. It's a bit like driving at 100 miles an hour everywhere, smashing it to bits, and then going to the garage and saying, "Well, put that back together, will you?"
Which they
And then
can.
going and going and going again, rather than just taking care of it. Like, just take care of it. Now, I know that's a position of, and not everybody can. And not everybody there is all kinds of things that link to traumas and mental health and mitigating factors. I'm not saying this with any judgment, but it's like, it comes back to me anyway, it comes back to
Mm.
long-term sustainable care, as opposed to I'm going to smash this car to bits, then take it to the garage and get it fixed up.
I think there's a big piece of education here as well because we could start talking about food. And then there's the affordability issue, and then there's the personal agency and choice and how much power.
Mm,
And I see people thinking, "Oh, this is a great thing because it will just stop me eating." And that's great if you're eating too much, but there's an implication there that suddenly you're not eating, and that has a whole other host of issues in your body, whether you're overweight or not. Suddenly dulling down the appetite. The body's not stupid. The body's like, hang on a minute, there's some signaling coming in. Here's
yeah,
any food. And I think what we're beginning to see in the research that I've looked at is the body starts thinking, let's find a way around this.
it panics, I guess. What does the data? Does the data tell you stuff like if you're wearing an Aura ring? What happens when you just stop eating? But I just imagine your body goes crazy, doesn't it? It just goes haywire.
For a little while, your body goes, oh, we're not using as much energy to digest. So your nervous system becomes more relaxed temporarily.
Yeah.
But so people are saying that when they're fasting, they're seeing that their heart rate variability goes up. Their nervous system is becoming less stressed. Of course, it is for a little while, but you can't sustain that for an awfully long time.
Mm.
So then you've got the issue of being malnourished. If you're a woman, especially in that sort of menopause age, you do need adequate protein or you're going to lose an awful lot of muscle. Um,
Yeah.
the easy thing for us to do is always eat carbs, it provides us with rapid glucose. So then you're living on, a couple of biscuits or a bit of bread. Of course, you're going to lose weight.
Mm.
And that's going to cause you a whole load of other problems. Um, and I think, yes, I mean, we could talk about Ozempic and statins all day, but it's not my area of expertise.
No.
My area of expertise is behavior change and choice.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's a reason why we get ourselves into these pickles in the first place. And I think often it's because we just don't even know it's happened. We don't even understand. Oh, is that not okay for me?
Yeah.
Um,
Normalizing and all that kind of stuff.
it's just-
Fascinating. It is complicated, and as I say, I'm quite late to it. I'm late to most things, to be honest. I don't follow um that kind of thing like Botox and all that kind of stuff. I just I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just a bit scared of it. I don't really. I mean, I'll dye my hair and sort my teeth out, but certain things really scare me, and I think it is generational. This younger generation seems very, very, um, I don't know, willing to experiment with their bodies and put things into their bodies that I don't know, scares me. Anywho, right, sounding very old again.
It's often
Um,
around you though, isn't it? Because it becomes normalized. And I don't live, when I go into London and especially that sort of the skinny Sloane Square look, I think, wow, these women are really thin and their skin looks really tight. And then of course when I leave, I forget all about it. So I don't have a desire because I don't even know it's there. And I think there is
yeah,
surround yourself with
I think they might be right.
point
I
of
think I don't know what my friends would say if I. Interesting. I'll ask them. If I started all of that. Listen, okay, well, um, Casaido, Dr. Casaido?
Dr. Caicedo, the founder
Casado.
of sophrology.
All
And I
right.
would love to have met him. And I spend a lot of time imagining I might be him. What would he be thinking? How would he
Yeah.
think?
What would he do now?
What would he do now? He'd be so cross. Oof.
Probably. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe he didn't live to see where we're heading with all this stuff.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Number 3 then. Let's go.
Well, this is a really funny one because if I'm going to talk about Caicedo, I have to talk about Wim Hof. And of
Oh,
course,
the Iceman.
Iceman Wim Hof. I put Wim Hof on my list because I was thinking who's inspired me. And Wim Hof has had a lot of publicity. And, some of it's good and some of it's bad, and that's what happens in the world. And people judge and people don't. But the reality is Wim Hof has made the practice of throwing yourself into cold water
Yeah.
warm. So of
Yeah.
course, me being me, and I do like to try most things, because I am very nosy and like a kick, unfortunately. I keep that under check. But I do throw myself into cold water, and I'm very lucky to spend a lot of time in the Alps. So I do get to go in cold water and break the ice to get in there. Now, all I can say is, my goodness, it makes you feel good. So
You've
here we
done this. You've actually thrown yourself into iced water.
on most days. So I will send you an amazing photograph because when you're in a bikini and a woolly hat, it does have a certain Instagram appeal to it, even with a bit of a filter on. I try not to post photos like that, but sometimes I myself. And of course, the likes make me feel great for a couple of minutes. And there is an addiction to that as well. I can't believe the way Wim Hof has done this. He lost his wife. He was left with 4 children, and the story goes that he was living in whichever city he was in, and he started putting himself in one of the local ponds or the local fountains to try and get himself to feel something. He couldn't
Hmm.
anything. So here's a man who starts realizing that cold water
Mhm.
activates the fight or
Mhm.
flight. So we feel things, and then of course
Mhm.
when we feel something,
Mhm.
we have this stress up to stress down response. We feel it, our body goes, whoa, and then it allows us to reset. And that's been exactly my own experience. I go into the cold water. I'm now cold adapted. I've trained myself to stay in for a few minutes
Oh,
and
having my dog. Just always. She always has to get involved.
it's lunchtime. She's probably thinking I'm
Yeah.
going to eat by now.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry
and
about that, everyone.
The dogs are an interesting point, Julia, because if we behaved like dogs and we knew when we were hungry, lonely, angry, and tired, life would be very simple. Our dogs
Mm,
don't sit around eating all day. They don't sit around being burnt out. If they're cross, they go outside and rip up something, hopefully, or not on the sofa. If they're hungry, they bother you for food. If they're angry, tired, or lonely, they take action. And humans don't
mm,
for some reason. We've got this very clever processing that means, oh, I'm really tired, I'll start eating. Oh,
yeah.
I'm really angry, I'll start scrolling. This is not the wiring of a human being as it should be. So Wim Hof is a major inspiration to me. I think he's pioneered a method that isn't medical, that has, I think, helped so many people and created community. How clever that we now have this community of cold dippers all over the world. We have a community of ice bathers. This method is free. You can do it anytime. You can do it at home in your shower. Sometimes the tepid water in London is not really that nice, but it's better than nothing. And this is a nervous system based tool. I am all about the nervous system. That's why I track HRV. It is the control system in our body, it is the brake or the accelerator. And when we learn which buttons and levers to press to manage our nervous system, ultimately we learn to manage ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So he's a huge inspiration. I think the method is very, very clever. I can't wait to see where it goes. It's changed millions and millions of lives.
Well, I mean, I do remember Wim Hof. I think it was something on the telly. Um, and they get some celebrities to do it. Anyway, vaguely remember seeing him on that, and I just remembered his name, and I thought he had great energy, and I looked at it and went, "Wow, okay, I'm not doing that." Um, but it's now again moved into mainstream. It's like you see the footballers and all the kind of high performing athletes getting into ice baths. You get these little, then you get these like little blow up things you can put in your shed that
Oh,
you can just sit in ice dipping.
like a
I were
pet
very
belts.
I've got a very dear friend, Julia. She's well into her 70s, and
Yeah.
she's got one of these blow up ice thingies. Oh no, hang on, I've got this wrong. She sits in a hot tub that's blow up, having every single day gone um, cold water dipping in the sea, and she
Wow.
actually swims for like an hour all through the year, every single day, and then she, in the middle of the winter, has to come in and warm herself back up in this hot tub. But she absolutely swears by this cold water dipping.
Mm.
Um, I did try it. I tried something similar. There's a little natural plunge pool. Sounds very fancy, and it is, I suppose, in a club I belong to. And I've often looked at it and thought that just looks like a big pond. I'm not getting in that. But I could see all these people trying it. I thought, I'll try it, and it makes you feel marvelous.
You
You
feel
just feel alive. I mean, you just feel. I mean, it hurts when you first walk in, but then you come out and you feel amazing because you did it, and B, it must be doing something. Must be doing. Is it like free radicals or something, Lindsay? That's
all the nervous system.
all the good stuff.
We in the same way we should be living, running away from an animal, coming back to the cave, being chilled. We need this polarity now, and of course we don't have it. We just have this weird fur-lined rat trap of creature comfort. Blech.
Yeah, we need to go and feel something.
Yeah, that artificial dopamine hit you have every time you scroll or you buy something, or this is
Yeah,
real energy. And I think energy is everything. Energy is our emotions, is energy in motion. Our electrical charges. We talked about the electric shock therapy. It's the same principle with the cold water. Here we have
yeah,
a huge shock to the body, and the body's like, "Oh, there's a shock. Now we can downregulate." But you can't
yeah.
without the lows. So, yeah, I do recommend it safely. Please read the guidelines, consult a medical practitioner if you wish to do this yourself. And of course,
Oh,
now we have this fire and ice. Have you not seen this in London? The sauna and the cold plunge, and it's becoming a social thing. So there's a big chain in America called, I think it's called Othership, where this is your hangout on a Friday night in your swimmers, ice bathing and saunaing.
but they
There's a
go together anyway, don't they? Don't all saunas have a plunge pool? Is that how it works, or is that what the 80s?
I think traditionally they were meant to, but I was laughing because somebody was sort of selling this concept to me. I was like, I'm not really sure I want to go and hang out in my swimming costume at night.
Well,
Naked,
at least
isn't
they
it?
got swimming costumes on.
That's
Oh
very
wait,
true. I suppose in the Baltics you wouldn't have some.
well,
some
no, you're absolutely right. Going back to the 80s, I went on a business trip um, in the Nordics, and everyone went off for a sauna, and they were continuing the meeting in the sauna with nothing but towels, and they use those to sit on. So
yeah,
what
so
I'm saying. That's
this
a bit too much information for me. Bit too much bonding.
experience as a graduate trainee in Sweden, and it didn't end well. Well, the schnapps came out
Yeah,
afterwards.
No, it was quite enlightening. You know, us Brits, we like to be covered up.
Absolutely.
All right, good old Wim Hof. And I didn't know that, his backstories. That's actually really interesting. I'm going to check him out a bit more. All right, number 4 then, please, Lindsay.
Oh, I'm gonna put my husband in the frame, and I'll tell you
Oh,
why.
good.
Staying married's quite hard work, and
Mhm.
anybody that tells you otherwise is, I think, telling fibs. And when you decide you are going to stay married and you're going to do the work, it opens up a whole other realm of challenge because you have to be ready, A, to do the work, and B, the other person has to be willing as well. And sometimes somebody has to take the lead, and that's also where I see people go, I don't want to lead that. I'm like, well, somebody has to. So I've put my husband in here because we're so different. I can't quite work out how this happened, but here we are, nearly 25 years later. Um, my husband is an absolute rock. He is naturally quite a calm and quiet person. He's much more introverted than me. So, of course, I now have one child that's one way and one that's not. Um, and I've spent a lot of time thinking, how is this helping me? And how do I dance with it rather than fighting against it?
Mm.
I think through the personal development work I've done, I realize that he is my anchor. And when he looks like he's perhaps not paying attention, he's not paying attention. He's just giving me enough rope to do what I need to do before he has to pull me back in. And I've watched him because I'm fascinated by people. And when I really started watching him, and actually I was watching him because I've got a daughter who's very similar, and I was finding it very difficult to work out how they were so alike. I started watching this behavior, and I've learned to admire it and appreciate it as being something that's really helpful. So he'll let the line go as far as he needs to, and then it'll come back in. He'll keep
Mm.
calm until something's really, really funny or really, really bothering him. He won't make decisions rapidly, which of course drives me nuts, but that's because he just takes the time to be strategic. He plays the ultimate long game. And I've really, really learned so much from watching that. And we've stepped into another phase now. We don't have children at home. We're in that
Mhm.
phase where we spend a lot of time together on our own. And the conversation for this weekend was, what are we going to do? I said, oh, nothing. How's that with you? Yeah, great. No one's going to the golf club. No one's going out. We will actually go and do something separately on Sunday. What do you want to do tomorrow? We just learn to hang out together.
Yeah, lovely.
It's been a revelation. It's hard. It's been, it's a challenge, massively challenging, especially in this environment. And I think, Julia, I will recall a time when I was first married. I first had my children. And I've got a lovely friend called Donna who I hope listens to this. She's a big podcast fan. And when we used to say, people used to talk about their relationships, and people would say, my husband's amazing, and it's Valentine's Day, and he's got me all this stuff, or whatever. And I used to think, oh gosh. And of course, now I'm older, I realize they're all
Mm.
telling fibs. So she now uses the word when somebody says anything about how's your husband, she always just says amazing, and then sends me a
Mm.
text. And this
Mhm.
again. Like, we need to stop doing that. So I think the reality of life is harsh. Um,
Mm.
I love watching people and thinking, what is this teaching me? And if it's really annoying you, it's teaching you even more. It's a sign.
Yeah. How wonderful. I'm okay. So I can I just sort of respond to that by sort of sharing a few things about. I mean, I've only had two main relationships. My ex husband, and we were together 33 years. So we met at 16. So that was that kind of classic childhood sweetheart thing. And he's still very much in my life. In fact, he produces this podcast. There you go. And nobody else knows that. It's a
Oh,
new revelation. So yeah, we're still very much in my life, and we've remained very very close and consider him family. Um, and but it is a game of two halves because you know Neil and we had a very um, companionable, lovely 33 years together. I mean, it was really, we raised two amazing kids. We did nice things. We were, yeah, I would say very um, comfortable with each other and very, um, just kind of we took care of each other. And we both were kind of rescued each other types when we were young. And some might say sort of clung on to that kind of life raft. But it sustained for an awful long time until I had my own sort of, um, crisis, shall we say, and it's all in my book where I talk about when my dad died and how that affected me and made me realize that I wasn't living fully authentically. But but I'm now in a relationship with a woman, which is a whole different ballgame anyway, and you can't compare the two relationships. I think same-sex relationships are amazing and also come with their own dynamic.
Mm.
But as well as that, the personality change is huge. So the person I'm with now, and Neil will probably be horrified to hear this. I mean, she's really hard on me, and Neil wasn't at all, and continues to not be. But Catherine is so hard on me, and it's so good for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily like it in the moment, but she is somebody who really will hold me to task, who really will hold me to doing the right thing by myself and by others. And I now feel I'm with someone who won't let me just buy the thing I want without thinking about it. She'll make me think about it and stop and pause and go, I don't know, is that the right thing for you? And I can't tell you how much I now lean on that a little bit and say, oh, I'm going to just check in. And it's like to have somebody share decision making and be the person that's going to kind of challenge me. Um, sounds like you have that already with your husband, but I don't. I think it's literally been a game of two halves for me. But I think it's because I wasn't ready to meet a Catherine. If I'd met Catherine when in my 20s, she would have terrified me. Not just because how she makes me feel, which is new emotions, really big emotions, but also her kind of strength. Neil's a very gentle character, and I am too. So we were like two babes in the woods, kind of like figuring out life together. And so if I'd met Catherine younger, I would have just run away. But now I'm ready. I feel like I'm now strong enough, resilient enough, and whole enough to have like what I would call true partnership. Again, no disrespect to my relationship with Neil, but it was like this is what true partnership is. She meets me face on, and we make decisions together, and she holds me to much higher kind of, I don't know, behaviors than I probably had before. So thank you for sharing your stories. It got me to be able to share mine so publicly. Sorry, everybody. There we
Well, I
are.
think that's the beauty of the conversation, Julia, and anybody
Yeah.
that's listening who's thinking my partner is very like me, that's another challenge in itself. Because I
Mm.
and I were totally different. In fact, I think we were attracted to each other because I was completely mad and he was far more stable at the time when we were young people. We were working in the city when we met. I said to somebody yesterday, and I was the kind of person that sometimes didn't go home at night and was queuing at TM Lewins for a new shirt before I went back in to my banking job. He's not really that kind of guy. And of course, long term, this has played out very well. But it has its ups and downs. And if I had been with somebody who was the same as me, we'd probably both be dead by now.
I always used to say that too. I never want to date myself. Oh my goodness. Awfulness. Um, Good. All right. Well, good old hubby. Okay, we get to the finale then, Lindsay. Who is number 5?
It's going to be my dad.
Oh,
And I've
bookended. You've bookended with your parents.
bookended with my parents. I feel really I've really struggled with this list, Julia. I'll be honest with you, because I was hoping for Michelle Obama or because of the work I do. I spend a lot of time telling everybody they're unique, and I spend a lot of time talking about the fact that what we see is not really reality. So
Mm.
what I know about you, obviously, is far more because you've written a book and you've been very honest, and your honesty and your integrity is quite searing. I feel it in myself, and I feel very challenged to actually up my game. And I'll talk to you about that. But I think it's very, very important because in the world of social media and AI, we are all very beige.
Mm.
So when you look
Mm.
into that field, I looked into the field of other sort of therapists, coaches, and leaders, and thought, who would I choose? And I was like, everyone has a problem or so, so I couldn't really work it out. So I thought, well, I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about my dad because my dad, again, totally different from my mum. My dad he was an engineer by trade and he is incredibly clever with his hands. My dad can fix anything, whether it's a broken headphone that the kids turn up with or a broken car. And I said to him, so he wears a wheat band as well the other day. In fact, everybody in my family wears a wheat band because it means I can spy on them and it gives us this great chat. Gus, so your strain score was only 3. What did you do yesterday? Lay in bed. I phoned my dad the other day. I said, excuse me, what have you been doing? It says you've been sword fighting. He said, yes, yes, yes. He said, laying bricks. I said, where were you laying bricks? Oh, well, there's some bricks left at your brother's. I went with my friend and we laid some bricks at their place. You're in your 70s. Why were you doing? Well, I mean, I can. And I thought, well, why not? And off he went. Now, that level of creative ability I admire because I think times are changing and we don't do so much for ourselves. We don't cook so much for ourselves. We don't clean for ourselves. We don't do our own laundry, although I'm very good with an iron because my mother taught me how to wield one very, very well. But these skills, these hands-on skills are being lost. And I would have put my brother on the list as well because he is an incredible craftsman. His house is immaculate. His attention to detail is unlike anything I've ever done. And again, I have one child who has this incredible attention to detail, another one that is more like me, a lot more sort of, I don't know what the word is to be complimentary, energetic and free flow, let's say. And I really admire that in him. And I also spent a lot of time looking at my lineage through my father and what I've taken from that and what I haven't, and what I'm trying to pass down that generational line in terms of legacy. My father has an ability to be incredibly loyal and dedicated. He's very, very consistent with the way he behaves. The flip side of that, of course, could be rigid. But he is, I think, a very, very dedicated person. He's very, very honest. And of course, again, maybe too much so sometimes with his thinking. But he is genuine to what he thinks and believes. And he's made it his mission to care for my brother and I. And he's really, I think, taken on the role of father in the way that I would want in my family for my husband and I to be. So, yeah, he ends the list. He's a very practical man. He can fix anything. He's done a great job at demonstrating his love. And actually, as he gets older, like I said to you, we've had much more gentle conversations about, I see how he's with my brother and my own kids. And I get to comment on it and say, I really appreciate that. My kids love hanging out with my dad as they do my mum. It's really special, Julia. And I think, I think sometimes we sort of think, especially if you had a really hard childhood or people who've had in big T trauma, they perhaps sometimes push that away or it's closed down. But there's good in everything. And I think when you really try and look for those kernels or those nuggets of gold in the relationship and build on them. And we know neurologically when we look back on the past favorably, we build more resilient and encouraging memories. But there is work to be done on that as well because it doesn't always feel that way.
Oh, I love the sound of him. We watch Repair Shop all the time.
Yes.
I just love that show so much. Catherine introduced me to it, and I did take the piss at first. I was like, what is this? But now I'm obsessed with it. I love it. And there's certain men on there that Steve, the urologist, he fixes all the clocks and whatnot. And there's something about that generation of man who's really good with his hands and clever and gentle, and he's got this lovely aura about him. And, you can imagine at home he's got like a big old shed and it's got all the right tools and everything's in little boxes and just that mustiness and there's it's a wonderful kind of mix of all the best bits of maleness, which we don't talk about enough at the moment. I do worry about that. I think there's space for conversation to talk about all these incredible natural typified traits of good men. And I'm blessed with loads of great men in my life. But just looping back to my book again, I've got dad envy too because my dad wasn't that dad, unfortunately. And he occupies 2 whole chapters of my book. Enigma Part 1 and Part 2 as as they're titled because I still can't work him out. Some say that whole book was me just outworking who he is and why he was the way he was. But when you hear of quintessentially solid, grounded, present family men like that, it's really warming. It sounds like he sounds like a very good man. I like it. So
Yeah.
you're very fortunate, aren't you? Your bookends and all the people in between. Lucky Lindsey. I'll start calling you that from now on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's making your own luck and also processing it in a positive way. Because I could have sat here and told you a very different story. And I could have told you about the conflict and the confrontation and the
Oh, I know. I was only teasing.
but you are right in saying we have to wake up every day and think, I have everything I need
Yeah.
and more than I ever dreamt of. And this is awesome. I'm going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Because-
But there's a shadow side to every story and every life. And I don't want to make light of it. I do know there's been some, we've talked offline and there's some things. And when I come on your podcast, Lindsey, we can get deeper into this stuff. So it's, I know, I'm very excited about that. But I don't want to make light of it. I'm calling you Lucky Lindsey purely because of your parents sound amazing. And I'm so glad you get to honour them today, and I hope they listen to all the lovely things you say about them. All right, well, we've come to the end of the 5. My next question is always the same, again, because I'm just curious and nosy, which is, we've talked a bit about how your mum's marriage, you modelled some of your marriage and how you are on her and how she is. Sounds to me like some of the things you prize are keeping a good home that feels warm and family and welcoming and just kind of feels very abundant. And that's the kind of feeling I got when you spoke about her. Obviously, I'm not going to get his name right again. Casado, potato, sophrology man.
Yeah.
Obviously that's absolute fundamental of your practice and what your belief system is and how you approach how you support your people. Wim Hof, well, enough said. It's all about cold water these days. That's where we all need to do that. And so I can imagine that's inspired your kind of connection with your body and its responses to things like that. Hubby, of course, your rock, your mainstay, but the guy that just reels you in when you've got a little bit too ahead of yourself. And then Dad bookending it beautifully with just that gentle spirit that I kind of pictured when you were speaking. So it's fairly evident that these people have influenced you and how you take that forward. But is there anything specifically you haven't spoken about already that now we have spoken, you can attribute to these 5 people and say, that's the thing. That's the thing I've really gotten from these guys.
I've been on my own journey, of course. And I think when I realized that everybody's human, therefore there must be something bigger than us and whatever your faith is in a higher power, that changed everything for me because it allowed me to think, well, if I'm purposefully made by whatever higher power or the universe, then everybody else is sort of involved but isn't totally responsible. There's no blaming. It just kind of is what it is. It's this sense of perspective that I've learned. And I've been very fortunate, I think, to become, what word do we use? Enlightened, awakened, done the journey, walked some of the steps. Of course,
Done the work, I think is what they say. Is it?
Well, I'm doing the work.
Doing the work. Continue to do it.
Every day, because I know when I don't do the work, I'm like, oh, it's awful. So I think the fact that there is a higher power, and in my head, it's God. That's the thing that ties all this together. The rich simplicity, the tapestry of life, all things working together for good. And like we said, who knows what's on the next side? But on this earthly life, it's let's enjoy the ride. And it's like going on holiday, isn't it? Let's try and remember the days when it was sunny, not the days when it was pouring with rain.
All right. Good way to be. We're going to get into that then when we meet. Let's talk about that. Okay, good. I just think what I'm hearing then is that what powers you, and probably takes that into your work as well, is this kind of gratitude and optimism and wondrous way of being, as opposed to whatever the opposite of those 3 things are. And I like that. I think I'm the sort as well. I can wake up with a dark cloud over my head sometimes, but I quickly find ways of blowing it away. And maybe that's a gift in itself, because it's a trait, isn't it? It's something you're born with a bit. That kind of sunny side of the street type feeling, where you kind of, anything that happens, you think, that's not so great, but let's see what we can turn it into. That to me feels quite inherent. It's not easily or naturally gotten to without a huge amount of effort, I think. So yes, I can see that thoroughly with you. Good. Right. Last question then. I think that's how we've been connected. I'm going to embarrass myself now. I can't remember. Were you on the end of Lucy's podcast then? Did she say you need to speak to Lindsey and this is why? Because my last question is always, who should I speak to next and why? That's a great question. Have you prepared something? Because I'm pretty sure I asked you to. If I haven't, I'm so sorry. It's like I just assumed you'd know. But have you got one?
Of course, I've got millions.
Oh, good. All right then.
I think you should go. speak to is Dr. Lisa Miller, who talks about this part of your brain that's activated by non-religious spirituality. Uh,
Oh.
I was in my head trying to roll through, could I find somebody in a UK leadership position that took the same stance that she does? But I don't think there is anybody. And she's truly, truly inspiring as a leadership model, as a researcher. She is, yeah, truly fascinating. I'd love to see her on your show if that was possible. And if you want a personal connection, I'll have to think much more closely about that.
All right. Well, I'm going to do my best to get in contact with Dr. Lisa Miller. But yes, if you have a personal connection as well, I just want to keep this thing going. I realize in this process that I'm meeting such extraordinary people I would never have the pleasure or privilege to speak to otherwise, because I like to think that I've got a pretty decent network, but it's curated over years and years of me being at the center of it. So you kind of gravitate to people that orbit around you, don't you? Whereas you do something like this and you just suddenly get blasted into other people's orbits and you meet people you'd never normally, encounter. Um, and, to me, that's fabulous. Or as Catherine says, it's fresh meat. But I think it's just the best bit. Like, genuinely, I enjoy meeting new people and hearing their stories and finding out who made them. You know what I mean? Someone said to me, "What's the purpose?" I said, "I want to find out who's behind everybody else."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just naturally curious about that. So anyone you can personally connect me to keep this playing forward is always appreciated too.
Of course, of course, of course.
But to be continued anyway, Lindsay, because I'm on yours soon, aren't I?
I know.
We
Very soon. We
we're gonna get into it.
we've got so much to talk about, and I must say, I think a long form podcast is an amazing way to have a conversation.
Yeah.
There is there is an anxiety, of course, in being interviewed, isn't there? Am I going to say something that I'm going to be picked up on? Is there something that's going to be revealed about me that I didn't really want to share? And I
Hmm.
think you're a brave person. I know you are, and I'm a brave person as well. And I think you're probably only attracting other really brave people. And there's so much nonsense and so much rubbish out there. And as I said to you, it's the "how's your husband amazing?" Well, of
Yeah.
course, that's not the truth, is it? So thank you for attracting the brave ones. Thank you for attracting the courageous ones. And I too will be having another conversation with you on Rich Simple Humans. So been
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I don't know how brave everybody is. I've had a few reluctants who've come to me afterwards and gone, "Oh, I think I revealed a bit too much about myself." But then they listen back and they feel really like proud of it. And I haven't edited anything out of all the episodes I put out now. They've all come, they're full like this.
but
Um, so maybe it's infectious, and I don't know, this idea of being true and honest about who we are and what our lived experience is. I think once the game was up, when I, revealed my true self and I let go of all my hurts from when I was younger. And I say my dad dying was the pivotal moment where that triggered all kinds of sort of shrouds falling off me. It's like I feel completely comfortable with speaking honestly and truthfully from my you know heart and soul. I just do, and I just trust that it'll be all right, and that even if I say something that somebody doesn't agree with, hopefully they'll understand where I'm coming from with it. But let's see. Early days, Lindsay. Wait
it
for all the
is.
lawsuits.
Well, let's hope it never comes to that. But somebody said to me this week, "Do you have wounds or scars?" And they said that's the feeling, because if this is a wound, you perhaps don't want to talk about it. Whereas if it's a scar, go ahead and show them to people.
Oh, that's
Always.
great. I love that. Who said that? Somebody you were speaking to?
Yeah, I mean, in my
Just
journey,
in your day to day?
I spend an enormous amount of time having these weird and wonderful conversations. Are you a
That's
river or a rock today, Julia? That would be my next question.
Oh, good Lord. We've got this. I'm gonna prep for our podcast. I'm gonna get match fit. This sounds like I'm gonna have to get like, I don't know, up my game. But those are brilliant. That's really a brilliant way of putting things. Okay, super. I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you so much for today. for sharing your 5 and spending time with me today, Lindsay. Very much enjoyed it. Please, please be kind to me when it's my turn.
Brilliant. Of course I will. So much.
Take care. Thank you. Well, I love that. That was such an easy flowing, natural conversation. It's like we've known each other forever, and they're my favorite types of conversation. I hope you did too. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, comment, or get in touch. Maybe you'd like to share your 5. Until then, take care for now.